10 Stoic Principles so that nothing can affect you. Epictetus Stoicism, 2026. Life will constantly throw challenges, setbacks, and difficulties your way. People will disappoint you, circumstances will shift unexpectedly, and plans will fall apart despite your best efforts. This is the unchangeable reality of existence. But here's what the ancient Stoics discovered. While you can't control what happens to you, you can develop an inner fortress so strong that nothing external can truly disturb your peace. You can become psychologically invulnerable. Epictetus, born into slavery and physically disabled, became one of history's most influential philosophers precisely because he mastered the art of remaining unaffected by circumstances. Despite having no control over his external situation, he cultivated complete sovereignty over his internal state. His teachings, preserved by his student Aurelius, offer us a practical roadmap for achieving this same psychological immunity. As we navigate 2026 with its unique challenges and uncertainties, these timeless principles remain as powerful and relevant as they were 2,000 years ago. Today, we're exploring 10 core Stoic principles that, when genuinely internalized and practiced, make you essentially unaffected by external circumstances. This isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about building such profound inner stability that, while you acknowledge what happens around you, it no longer has the power to shake your fundamental peace and clarity. Principle 1. Distinguish rigorously between what is and isn't within your control. This is the absolute foundation of Stoic practice and the first principle Epictetus taught. He divided everything into two categories: things within our control and things outside it. Within our control are our thoughts, judgments, desires, aversions, and actions. Outside our control is essentially everything else: other people's behavior, outcomes, circumstances, our reputation, the past, the future. The revolutionary insight is that you should invest emotional and mental energy only in what you actually control. Everything outside your control should be accepted with philosophical calm once you've done what you can. Most suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable, wanting people to behave differently, demanding outcomes to turn out your way, insisting circumstances should be other than they are. In practice, this means constantly asking, is this within my control? Your colleague's attitude? No, outside your control. How you respond to their attitude? Yes, completely within your control, whether your project succeeds. The outcome depends on many factors outside your control. The quality of your effort and preparation, entirely within your control. When you consistently redirect energy from the uncontrollable to the controllable, something remarkable happens. You stop wasting psychological resources on futile battles. You invest all your power where it can actually make a difference. This creates both effectiveness in what you can influence and peace about what you cannot. Principle 2. Recognize that your interpretations create your experience, not events themselves. Epictetus's most famous teaching is, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Between every external event and your emotional response lies an interpretation, a story you're telling about what happened and what it means. That story is completely within your control, and changing the story changes your entire experience. Someone criticizes your work. The event is, words were spoken, but your interpretation might be, they're attacking me personally, they think I'm incompetent, this is terrible. That interpretation creates anger, hurt, and defensiveness, a different interpretation of the same event. They're offering feedback from their perspective, which I can evaluate for validity. This interpretation creates calm curiosity rather than emotional turmoil. The practice involves catching yourself in dramatic interpretations and consciously examining them. Is that the only way to interpret this event? What are alternative interpretations? What's the most neutral, factual assessment? When you strip away interpretative overlay and look at bare facts, you often discover that situations are far less disturbing than your stories about them suggested. This principle is liberating because it means your emotional experience is largely within your control. You're not at the mercy of events. You're responding to your interpretations of events, and interpretations can be consciously chosen and changed. Principle 3. Accept reality completely while working to improve it. The Stoics practiced what seems like a paradox: complete acceptance of what is combined with determined effort to make things better. This eliminates both passive resignation and frustrated resistance. You don't waste energy denying, resenting, or fighting against what already is. But you also don't passively accept circumstances that can be improved. Epictetus taught his students to accept completely what has already happened. It cannot be changed, so resistance is futile suffering. But then to look forward and ask, given this reality, what can I do from here? This orientation creates peace about the past and present while maintaining agency about the future. You lose your job. Complete acceptance. This has happened. This is now the reality. No energy wasted on "this shouldn't have happened" or "it's not fair." Just clear acknowledgement: this is the situation. Then immediate shift to forward-looking action. What opportunities does this create? What's my next move? How do I use this circumstance? This principle prevents you from being affected by circumstances, because you eliminate the internal battle between what is and what you wish was. You're standing firmly in reality as it actually exists, then working from that foundation. No delusion, no denial, no bitter resistance, just clear-eyed acceptance followed by purposeful action. Principle 4. Remember that everything external is impermanent and borrowed. One of the most powerful practices Epictetus taught was remembering that everything we have is temporary. Your possessions, your relationships, your health, your life itself, all of it is on loan and will eventually be taken back. This isn't morbid pessimism. It's realistic perspective that prevents attachment from becoming enslavement. When you hold something lightly, knowing it's temporary, losing it doesn't devastate you. You enjoyed it while you had it, and you accept its loss when it comes. But when you grip tightly, believing you're entitled to keep something forever, losing it feels catastrophic. The Stoics understood that attachment to impermanent things creates suffering, so they practiced conscious awareness of impermanence. The practice involves regularly reminding yourself, "This is not mine to keep forever." When you enjoy your health, remember it's temporary and could change any day. When you appreciate a relationship, remember the person could leave or die at any time. This doesn't make you pessimistic or prevent you from enjoying these things. Actually, it deepens your appreciation because you're not taking them for granted. This principle makes you unaffected by loss because you've already accepted loss as inevitable. You're not shocked or devastated when the inevitable occurs. You're psychologically prepared, which doesn't eliminate sadness, but does eliminate the additional suffering that comes from believing loss shouldn't have happened. Principle 5. Judge only what is truly within your moral character. Epictetus made a crucial distinction. External things, wealth, health, reputation, success, are neither good nor bad in themselves. They're indifference. The only thing that's truly good is virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, and the only thing truly bad is vice. Everything else is neutral, and your peace should never depend on neutral things. This is radical reorientation. Most people base their sense of well-being on whether they're healthy, wealthy, successful, or well-regarded. But all of these are external and therefore not fully within their control. The Stoics located well-being entirely in character and virtue, which are completely within your control. You can be poor but virtuous, and therefore living well. You can be sick but maintaining your character, and therefore experiencing the only true good. You can be criticized but acting with integrity, and therefore succeeding at what actually matters. When you shift your evaluation from externals to character, you become unaffected by external circumstances because your well-being doesn't depend on them. The practice involves asking constantly, am I acting virtuously in this situation? Am I being wise, just, courageous, and temperate? These are the only questions that actually matter for your well-being. Whether you're also getting rich, staying healthy, or being praised, these are bonuses if they happen, but they're not necessary for living well. Principle 6. Practice negative visualization to build resilience and gratitude. The Stoics regularly practiced imagining loss, difficulty, and worst-case scenarios. Epictetus recommended contemplating losing everything you value, your possessions, your health, important relationships, your life. This practice serves multiple crucial purposes. First, it prepares you psychologically. When you've mentally rehearsed difficulty, you're not overwhelmed when it arrives in reality. You've already considered how you'd cope, what resources you'd draw on, how you'd adapt. This preparation creates genuine resilience. Second, it creates profound appreciation for what you currently have. When you vividly imagine being sick, you're more grateful for the health you have today. When you've contemplated losing important people, you appreciate their presence more fully. This gratitude enhances your current experience while reducing attachment. Third, it calibrates your emotional responses. When you've contemplated genuine catastrophe, minor frustrations reveal themselves as trivial. The traffic delay that might have ruined your day becomes insignificant when you've seriously considered being in an accident. The criticism that might have devastated you becomes minor when you've contemplated losing everything. The practice doesn't require hours of morbid contemplation, just regular brief reminders. I could lose this at any time. How would I handle it? What would I do next? This ongoing awareness keeps you both prepared and grateful, making you far less affected by actual difficulties when they arise. Principle 7. Respond to every situation by asking what virtue it calls for. Epictetus taught that every situation, no matter how difficult, is an opportunity to practice virtue. Lost your job. Opportunity to practice resilience and resourcefulness. Betrayed by someone. Opportunity to practice forgiveness and wisdom about human nature. Facing illness. Opportunity to practice courage and acceptance. This reframe is transformative because it means nothing can truly harm you. Circumstances can create opportunities for virtue or vice, but they can't force either. You always retain the choice to respond virtuously, and that virtuous response is what constitutes living well, regardless of the external situation. When you approach every challenge by asking, what virtue does this situation call for? You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You're someone using circumstances as training ground for character development. The difficulty hasn't defeated you. It's providing you with exactly the challenge you need to grow. This principle makes you unaffected by circumstances in the deepest sense. Yes, you still experience difficulties, but those difficulties no longer have the power to make you a worse person or to undermine what actually matters. They're just opportunities for practice, and you can always choose to use them well. Principle 8. Maintain indifference to praise and blame. Epictetus taught that you should be equally unmoved by others' praise and criticism. Both are evaluations of externals and opinions, which aren't within your control and shouldn't determine your sense of worth. When praised, you acknowledge it politely, but don't let it inflate your ego. When criticized, you evaluate whether it's valid, but don't let it deflate your self-assessment. This indifference to external judgment is liberating. Most people are enslaved by the need for approval and the fear of criticism. They contort themselves to earn praise and avoid blame. They make decisions based on what others will think rather than what aligns with their values. This slavery to opinion makes them constantly affected by others' evaluations. But when you've grounded your sense of worth in your own character and judgment rather than in others' opinions, you're free. You can hear praise without becoming dependent on it. You can hear criticism without being devastated by it. You evaluate both based on validity and usefulness, not based on emotional need. The practice involves conscious detachment from evaluative statements. When someone praises you, they're sharing their opinion, which is nice but doesn't determine my worth. When someone criticizes you, they're sharing their perspective, which I'll evaluate for validity but which doesn't define me. Over time, this creates such stability that others' judgments simply don't move you emotionally. Principle 9. Focus entirely on the present moment. Epictetus observed that we suffer more from imagination than from reality. We torment ourselves with regrets about the unchangeable past and anxieties about the unpredictable future. But in the actual present moment, we're usually fine. The practice of present moment focus eliminates most suffering because most suffering exists in time periods we're not actually in. When you're fully present, you're dealing only with what's actually in front of you right now, which is almost always manageable. You're not carrying the weight of past mistakes or future worries. You're simply addressing whatever this moment requires, which is the only thing you can actually do anything about anyway. This doesn't mean not planning or learning from the past. It means doing your planning and reflecting in the present moment, then returning to present focus. You don't live in worries about the future or regrets about the past. You live fully in the only time that actually exists, now. The practice involves constantly redirecting attention to the present when it wanders to past or future. Notice you're replaying a past conversation. Return to now. Catch yourself anxious about tomorrow. Return to now. This constant redirection gradually trains your mind to rest in the present, where peace actually exists. Principle 10. Remember that you're part of a larger whole. Epictetus taught that we're not isolated individuals but parts of a greater whole. Humanity, nature, the cosmos. This perspective creates resilience because it prevents you from making your individual circumstances and preferences the center of everything. You're one small part of a vast system that doesn't revolve around you. This cosmic perspective doesn't diminish your importance, but it does eliminate the self-centered thinking that amplifies suffering. When something doesn't go your way, you remember that the universe doesn't exist to fulfill your preferences. When someone treats you poorly, you remember they're also part of this system, acting according to their nature and circumstances. When you face hardship, you remember that difficulty is part of being human and you're not being singled out. This principle creates deep acceptance because you recognize that you're subject to the same forces and patterns as everyone else. You're not entitled to special treatment from the universe. You're participating in the same human experience of joy and suffering, success and failure, gain and loss that everyone participates in. The practice involves regular reminders of your place in the larger whole. Look at the stars and remember your smallness in cosmic scale. Read history and remember that humans have faced these same challenges for millennia. Observe nature and remember that you're part of the same system of growth and decay, beginning and ending. These 10 principles work together to create remarkable psychological immunity. You focus on what you control and accept what you don't. You choose empowering interpretations rather than disturbing ones. You accept reality while working to improve it. You hold everything lightly, knowing it's temporary. You judge only your character, not external circumstances. You prepare for difficulty while appreciating what you have. You respond to every situation as opportunity for virtue. You remain unmoved by praise and blame. You live fully in the present moment, and you remember your place in the larger whole. Epictetus proved these principles work through his own life. Born into slavery, disabled, powerless over his external circumstances, yet he achieved such inner freedom and peace that nobles traveled to learn from him. His external situation couldn't affect his internal state because he'd mastered these principles. In 2026, with whatever challenges this year brings, you can apply these same principles. They're not about changing your circumstances. They're about changing your relationship to your circumstances. They don't promise that nothing difficult will happen. They promise that when difficult things happen, you'll remain fundamentally unaffected in your peace, your clarity, and your ability to respond virtuously. Start with one principle and practice it daily. Perhaps begin with the control dichotomy, constantly sorting what is and isn't within your sphere of influence. As that becomes more natural, add another principle. Over time, layer these practices until they become your default way of perceiving and responding to life. The result won't be that you become emotionless or indifferent to life. You'll still have preferences and pursue goals. You'll still experience emotions and care about outcomes. But underneath all of that, you'll have developed an unshakable foundation that nothing external can disturb. This is the freedom Epictetus promised,